Well, hello everybody. Today we are getting started with our skeletal system. And we have a lot of information to cover. We're going to be talking about bones, the different features of bones, what the composition of bones are, and how to differentiate between two different types or two different portions of the human skeleton. All right, our essential question for today is to describe the differences between the axial and appendicular skeletons. And you can see a beautiful illustration of the major bones that make up the skeletal system. The title of these notes are the Introduction to the Skeletal System. You can see here the skeletal system. We have both the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. Both of them make up the skeletal system. In the axial skeleton, there are 80 bones. They lie along the longitudinal axis of the body. They include the bones of the skull, the hyoid, the vertebrae, ribs, sternum, ear, and the ear ossicles, those little bones that make up the ear. And you can see there they make up this central portion along the longitudinal axis of the body. The appendicular skeleton are those bones that make up your appendages. They include 126 bones. They make up the upper and lower limbs of the body. That would be your arms and your legs, and also your pelvic and pectoral girdles. Here you can see these are your arms, legs, your pelvic girdle, and the pectoral girdle up in here. The functions of the skeletal system, which are pretty much common sense, we know this, but it's always a good idea to review these different functions. First, we have support. Our body needs support in order to be able to sit up, to stand up, and to move around. Also for protection, especially the rib cage, your skull, and the pectoral girdle, as well as the vertebrae. They are very, very much protecting very, very sensitive organs. Your skeleton is also involved in movement, mineral homeostasis to maintain balances of the different minerals that make up our bodies, vascular production, meaning the production of blood is one of the functions of the skeletal system, and energy storage. There is some storage of fats that are involved in the skeletal system. There are 5 basic types of bones that we're going to be looking at. The first type is long bone. It's also called compact bone. Example of this is the humerus of your arm. That is your large bone that makes up your upper arm. That's called the humerus. The next type is short bone. Short bone is spongy bone except for the surface. And bones that are like this are the carpals of the wrist, also the tarsals of your ankle. So this is a wrist bone. Flat bones include the plates of compact enclosing. There are plates of compact bones that enclose spongy bone. Example of this would be the parietal bone of your skull. Up here, your parietal bone is up here in your skull. Another example of a flat bone is your sternum. That's the very large bone in the center of your chest. Irregular bones would include, they're variable in shape and size, and also how the different types of bone are dispersed throughout the structure. The vertebrae of your spinal column are irregular in shape. And the sesamoid bone, they are the types of bones that develop in tendons or ligaments, such as your kneecap or patella. So right here, it's kind of floating there, and it's you don't really have a kneecap until after you're born. It develops after your body grows and develops, and it develops out of your tendons or ligaments. Some different type of bones they're not really classified as a special type of bone, but these bones are found in the joint between your skull bones. When we get to study the skull here later on, you'll see that these sutural bones, they make up the zigzaggy shapes that we see between the different types of bones that make up the skull. Bone tissue Bone is made up of bone tissue, which we studied back in our tissues unit. Also cartilage, you can find cartilage at the ends of bones. Dense connective tissue, blood forming tissue that would be inside here, blood vessels, and nerves. So bones are actually a lot more complicated than we would think. There are a lot of different markings on the surfaces of bones that include rough areas, grooves, openings, and processes. In the next couple slides, we're going to be discussing what those different things might look like on different bones. And the specific functions of these markings could include passageways for blood vessels and nerves, such as the openings and processes and things. Joint formation, like up here, why is this shaped like that? Well, it's because it's going to connect with another bone, and that's a joint. Other functions of these different grooves and things like that include muscle attachment and contraction of the bone for movement. Some common bone surface markings include a foramen, which is an opening in the bone, and the one that I'm thinking of the most is the one that occurs on your jawbone or the mandible. I don't have a picture of that here, but we will take a look at that. The fossa. A fossa is a shallow depression in the bone, and I don't see one of those here either, but we will talk about that also when we're in class. The sulcus. A sulcus is a groove that makes up a bone. The meatus is a tube-like passageway or canal that you can see in bone. The condyle is a large round protuberance. Okay, so you can see down here, these are condyle. A facet is a smooth, flat, articular surface. Okay, so right here is a facet. The trochanter is a very large projection, and that's what this is classified as up here. Tuberosity is a large, rounded, roughened projection. All right, and those are just some basic ideas that make up your bone markings. We're going to do a little activity that kind of brings this all together so we can see this in a much more detailed way. All right, go back and answer that essential question that we started with at the beginning, and we'll continue to work our way through the amazing skeletal system.